is true. I mean, I'm not going to deny it. There's a Anti-Defamation League in the United States, and it's basically an Israel lobby. And they'll call up, Israel will contact the Anti-Defamation League and say, this Erdogan in Turkey is giving us trouble. And then the Anti-Defamation League will call up friends who write for the New York Times and say, maybe you should write something attacking them, and they will. Yes, it happens all the time. I know that. The fact that a lot of the Western elites don't like Erdogan, entirely because of the Israel lobby. It's because they don't want any independent regional powers that are outside their control. If they don't like Turkey, it's the same reason they don't like Iran. And it's not necessarily because of Israel. The United States doesn't want an independent Iran. It doesn't want an independent regional power, a power that it doesn't control. It wants regional powers which it can control, because this is a major U.S. interest, the Middle East. So when you see The Economist or the New York Times attacking Turkey, it's not necessarily because of Israel. U.S. ruling elites also don't want an independent regional power like Turkey. That's why I say the interests between Israel and the United States on a regional level, they're basically the same. The U.S. does not want any regional power which is independent, has its own independent foreign policy. The U.S. wants to control the region. So it's not correct, in my opinion, to just assume Israel is behind all the criticism. The U.S. ruling elites don't want an independent Turkey either. I think the answer is, of course, yes. I mean, I don't have a problem saying that. They went to the same schools, a lot of these people. They know for the future of your career, you better be on good terms with The Economist, the New York Times, the Washington Post. They think a lot like them. They're friends with them. So of course they're going to be influential. They talk to each other on the phone. The U.S., if you're a Turkish journalist and you attack Erdogan, right? Then the Washington Post, it'll quote you, and you feel good. I've been quoted by the Washington Post. Or the New York Times will say, this Turkish journalist said about Erdogan that he's a dictator. You get quoted in the New York Times. So it feels good for your ego. Wow, I just got quoted by the New York Times. Then you can write an op-ed, an opinion editorial, and the Times will publish it, or the Washington Post will publish it. Or you can write a book and they'll publish it. Everybody understands that if you say what the U.S. wants you to say, it helps promote your career. You don't need conspiracies. All you need is people's egos. And it explains 90%. Everybody understands, how do you get quoted in the New York Times? Say something terrible about Erdogan, and you'll get quoted. So you don't need a conspiracy. All you need is to understand people's mentality. For them, the most important place to be quoted is the New York Times, the Washington Post, or The Economist. And so they do what it takes to be quoted. That's all. It's not so complicated. You don't need closed doors and hidden networks. It's very simple to understand. Everyone understands in journalism, that's power. an important regional power. Israel is a terrorist state, and war so cruel what has been done to those people. Look, it has nothing to do with whether I'm Jewish or not. It's whether it's factually correct or not. And factually, yes, Israel is a terrorist state, and its actions are totally indefensible, and it's kind of a crazy state. It's become a lunatic state. Even the current president of Israel, Rivlin, Israel's current president, he said about a month and a half ago, he says, Israel is a sick society. I mean, you don't have to quote me, you could just quote their president. It's a sick place now. The society has moved very far to the right, and it really doesn't care about what anybody thinks about it anymore. It just carries on in a completely irresponsible, immoral, and criminal way. That's just a fact. Well, I think the main indication of it is this is a state which it's become almost addicted to war. It's a very difficult thing to conceive what kind of place it's become. 2008, let's go back. 2006, it attacks Lebanon, kills about 1,200 people, of whom about 1,000 were civilians. Destroys a large amount of the infrastructure of Lebanon, bridges, and other public buildings. 2008-9, it then attacks Gaza, completely defenseless society, Gaza. Kills about 1,400 people, about 1,200 of whom were civilians. Left behind 600,000 tons of rubble. 600,000 tons of rubble. 2010, when there's the humanitarian convoy going to Gaza, it kills 9 Turks on board the convoy. Clearly didn't have to. Could have just disabled the propeller on the boat, and that would have been the end of the Mavi Marmara. 2012 attacks Gaza again. 2014 attacks Gaza again, this time killing about 2,200 people, of whom 1,500 are civilians, about 520 are children, doing many times more destruction than in 2008-9. It's a much higher level of destruction. 2008-9, I think the estimate of the damage done was about $2.5 to $3 billion. Now the lowest estimate is $6 billion. In the middle of all of this, attack Iraq, attack Mavi Marmara, attack Lebanon. In the middle of all this, they don't stop talking about attacking Iran. They attack here, and they still want to attack Iran. If you read, as I did, the coverage during the last attack on Gaza, all they kept talking about, the commentators, while they're attacking Gaza, they keep talking about the next war. They're already talking about the next war. They haven't even finished the war in Gaza. And they're talking about the next war. What kind of state is this? All they talk about is war, 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 war. It's become an addiction. But it's also cost-free wars, because these are high-tech wars. They don't face any real threat. Do you know, they talked about 4,000 rockets that were fired at Israel. 4,000 rockets were fired against Israel. Okay, that's what they say. 4,000 rockets. One of the top anti-missile defense people in the world, his name is Theodore Postel at MIT. Postel, who understands anti-missile systems, he said Iron Dome, it had at most, it had a 10% effectiveness rate, 10%. All the talk by Israel of 80%, it's complete propaganda. 10% effectiveness rate. So you had 4,000 quote-unquote rockets going to Israel. About 400 may have been hit by Iron Dome. That means 3,600 went through. Iron Dome had no impact. Do you know how much property damage was done by these Hamas rockets? Do you know how much? Israel's official figure. The official figure is $15 million. If you fired a rocket at this building where we're now, it would be $15 million.